I'm continuing to be fascinated by these all these ratty pine trees in the distance. A lot are really healthy. There's a number of trunks here with a bunch of broken, jagged limbs. A lot of gaps in the trees. It's really pretty fascinating. I keep coming here trying to paint something different each week, and I keep coming over to the pine forest and doing that one. So today I'm just going to do a little sketching. Going to use some pastel pencils, which has to be constantly sharpened, and I'm going to work on black paper, which is actually, I work with a lot of tone papers. This is actually Strathmore drawing paper. It's all black, the questions. All right, so I'm looking off in the distance, and I see this one really Spartan trunk off in the distance. I know this is going to be hard to see. Maybe I'll just highlight this with a little bit of white. You can see how I hold my pencils. And I try to encourage people to do this if they ask. And because when you hold a pencil like this, you tighten up. You know, you have too much control. And there's this strange thing about loosening up the way that you hold the pencil when you sketch that gives you less control, but a nicer line, a more interesting line, in my opinion. So I'm going to use white, even though I might not normally do that because it's not what I'm after in the final goal. But again, so it will show up. I'm going to do that to start. It is 63 degrees. You can see I'm in a long sleeve shirt, in spite of the fact that it is today is September 2nd. Really should be a little warmer, but you know, if you're afraid of getting wet, or if you're afraid of being too cold, or you're afraid of being too hot, or the sun is too strong, blah blah blah, you'll have plenty of excuses to not come out and paint or draw or work outdoors, which I absolutely love doing. But the conditions are never, or I should say the conditions are rarely ideal. Today is a perfect day in that it's slightly overcast, not too hot, not too cold. So it's a good day to be out here doing this. Let's see. Going to mention, I don't know, that's the way thoughts are, I think. So basically I've got what you'd call a layout. I'm just gonna wander around here, push in some of this bit of greenery. See, I'm gonna see my rough style of sketching quickly. And what these are, you know, when I sketch like this is not necessarily something that's for resale. It's what I would call a study drawing for maybe another painting or something that's going to come later. Just a quick idea how I handle these little branches that come in here. You know, you can't just put the foliage in there without having something for it to hang from. So anyway, I'm going to continue to lock in these little bits of overhanging evergreen. It's fairly dense as it comes up here. In fact, it's almost like you just need to have it all be green, but that would be boring. So I just go in and I rough it in back and forth. As you can see, I don't draw with the intent of producing a photographic copy of what I'm looking at. I'm a much rougher sketch artist than that. And as I said before, I'm simply trying to get the colors, the shapes, the idea, work out the composition, so that when I do, or may do, another oil painting of this later in the month, then I'll have kind of visually thought it out a little bit. And the more you do these little sketches, maybe a watercolor study or something, or some kind of other, maybe a colored pencil drawing or something, the more prepared you will be when it comes time to do the final painting. I'm using, as I said, Faber-Castell pastel pencils today, which I really love. They're somewhat soft. You're all familiar, of course, with these. Let's see, these things, I'm sure, which are, quite hard to use in my opinion. I like a little bit more of a detail, so I'll get rid of that. I mean, I use them too for blocking in large areas, but my preference is for this sharpened pastel pencil. All right, so that's kind of roughed in a little bit. I'm gonna add some color to my trunks in the form of this gray. Here and there. Remember that these things don't all just go up and be great big trunks. They're covered here and there by other limbs. So I'm using gray. Again, holding the pencil fairly rough, fairly loosely. All right. And of course the drawing's moving around. This is life. All right, I think that's got it. All right, now I'm going to put maybe a little, some of these, not all of them, some of these have a little bit more of a reddish color in the trunk. And again, it doesn't necessarily matter which ones. I'm not trying to render a photograph. Little orange here, a little yellow ochre, whatever they call this. They don't call it anything. Again, to try to have some variety of color in each of the trunks to make it more interesting. Boy, that is a dark forest. All right, so let's see. I've got some burnt umber here, so a lot of these trees in between all of these larger ones, the ones that are further back are fairly dark. So I'm going to start tucking some of those in. Note how I don't just do a straight line. Here, I'll show you. I'm going to do one like this, stop at the green, jump over it up to here, and then every now and then, you jump over where a green space might be or might be coming. You fill it in later. Again, there are hundreds of trees here. This is an extremely dense forest. There are 40-some acres here at Whitehall with plenty of pretty things to draw, paint. So I'm really happy to be here. All right, so I've put in a few limbs. I do have a small studio on site here, which is one of the outbuildings that they generously lent me for the duration. Although I'm working outside almost all the time. I imagine there'll be a day here at some point where it rains and I'll work inside there. But it's nice to have, where I can load a bunch of art supplies in and not have to transport them all back and forth every time I come to visit. All right, so we're gonna put in some more foliage here and there. Some directional brush strokes. I think I'm painting today. All right. So let's see. I might want to darken up or gray out. Yeah, gray out a few of these. That red is a strong color, and that's like a red-brown, so I'm using this gray to kind of cut the strength of that red. See how that works? And I might also use that to do a few of these sideways limbs. Also, probably, let's stick a little purple in there, here and there, just for the shock value. It's a nice color to use for shadows. Like Impressionists, like people who worked in the Impressionistic style before me, we use a lot of blue and purple in the shadows. I mean, I think it adds a lot of interest. color where it's there, but you don't see it as strong as like these strokes I've got, but it is there. Let's see, perhaps some here and there in all these pine needles up here. Okay, mosquito, go away. No amount of bug spray seems to dissuade these bugs this time of the year. All right, so again, that's breaking up all that greenery. Add some interest. I'm also going to go in there with perhaps some dark blue. Again, breaking up all of that. You can see that I'm not sitting here drawing needle, needle, leaf, leaf. I'm just sketching, getting color in where the color belongs, adding some interest, breaking up the flatness of those bits of green. Come back in with some bright here and there. I think this is a brighter one. Yep, there we go. Add some of this textural, some of these brighter parts where they might have a little bit of sunlight glinting off the edge. Just short little haphazard strokes. Actually, I say they're haphazard, but I work in a very directional way. Things over here, you know, your needles might be falling down like that, and then over here, as we come over here, they're probably going to cascade down to the right here and there. And lots of little scribbles of highlight where the sun might be coming off of those leaves. All right, let's see. And some, I think I'm holding my pencils, yeah. I'm organized. Get some of this foliage that's, all these trees are coming up out of the foreground. This helps plant the trees into the dirt, into the green. Again, no photographic realism here. You know, I find the interest to be in the scribble, the line, the interest, the direction, the energy. I mean, I find this more interesting than trying to make something look like you're standing right in front of it. All right. And of course, you could work this out quite a bit more, but this is just for the purpose of a little bit of a live drawing demonstration. I'm not going to work it all. You know, you could put another hour or two into this easily, but not today. A few bits of bright grasses here and there. Maybe some yellow. Did I even get yellow out? Yes, I do. Maybe a little yellow here and there. Again, you can see where the sun is glinting off of bits here and there. And then, let's see, let's just have I should sit back and have a quick look. Boy, there's some blacks in there that I can't even, that are just blacker than this paper, but if I use black on this paper, it just makes it gray. See, doesn't even show up. So let's see, I could use some blue here and there. And I'm going to probably put a little bit of green over top of that. This is representing some of the greenery and some of the other trees that are deeper into the scene. So I'm going to use some of this darker green over top of that here and there. See, that gives me a nice blue-green in there. Something like that. So we get this, hopefully this illusion of depth, a little bit more of this blue-green down into the green, tie the foreground and the middle ground together. All right, so something like that. All right, so a couple of more things before we finish. Let's see. I'm going to use for yellow ochre. add a little bit to some of these trees of this yellow color. It's yellow ochre. It's a very, earthy, natural yellow. Just to bring out a few of these trees here and there. Once again, a few more of these horizontal limbs. And every now and then I actually look at the scene and copy something. I mean, I know it looks very random, and in fact it is, but I'm not doing an exact rendering of what I'm looking at, but I'm gathering bits and pieces from the scene and moving them around, kind of a composite style. All right, so that's the yellow. Gonna go in with a little bit of white here and there to get that sunlight bouncing off of some things. A little bit of texture. Let's see, some dark brown, I think. Add a few more of these branches that just constantly go back and forth. Maybe a little white on some of them for a highlight. All right, and the last thing I do, which of course the first thing most people do, is I put in the sky. And again, this entire scene is basically black, but you have these tiny little bits peeking through. And this is where I do somewhat observe, because this isn't easy to make up. You've got to imagine these other, see, when I do this and then I do something on the other side, you start to see a tree trunk even right there, even though I haven't done one. So we just wander around. Again, I remind myself to look at the scene once in a while. Do these little bits of bright blue peeking through. And even up in here, every now and then, a little bit. Little, again, maybe a little bit lower. Moving on to the right. A little stronger there, because, keeping the center of interest here is, I think, something that you want to do. You want to make your stronger arguments somewhere in this area, in this sort of triangular place, I guess I would call it, to keep the viewer's brain from wandering off one side or the other. So you make all your little bit stronger statement right here. Isn't that right, Claudia? What did Mr. Green say? Make something happen? Actually, I'm making something happen right here. Mr. Green, of course, being and Claudia, my wife Claudia's high school art teacher. So we frequently quote the lessons we learned from him. He was an amazing teacher. All right, so a little bit more over here, so that it's not completely abandoned, and that's about it. Now that that blue is a tad strong, so I always go back. There's a little white over it, over all the places I've been. Now, I suppose this would be easier if I had a light blue pencil, but here's the lesson in that. If this was just all done with a light blue pencil, it would all be the same color. But if you look here, I've gone white over blue, and you get a number of different color changes. It adds interest to it. A little darker blue, a little lighter blue. It makes it interesting. It adds something to look at, something to intrigue the viewer. Something like that. And then, let's see, what else are we going to do? Something a little bit ridiculous, maybe. I always like a little bit more ridiculous. A little bit of pink. Maybe just in this lower area under the sky, here and there. Again, it kind of blends with that purple I put in earlier. starts looking a little brown amongst the trees. All right, there we go. What else? That's about it. One of the, let's see, what do I have? Really dark blue here, that might work. One of the troubles with using this black paper is you can't easily go back in and do these shadows, so I'm using like a dark blue pen here just to add a little shadow definition to the right side of some of these tree trunks. And then up here, I think we'll say one of the last things I'm going to do is put a few more horizontal branches in, because these pine trees sure do have a lot of those. They seem to just break off as they go up, and all the leaves or the needles remain in the upper canopy of the tree. So lastly, I'm just going to fill in a little bit more densely here and there with this green that I used before. Get rid of some of that black so that it doesn't call too much attention up there. All right. You know, I kind of wander in and out of these little bits of sky and kind of softens some of them, blends them into the background a little bit, fuzzes the edges, so to speak, makes it a little bit more believable. All right. Check this color. Yeah, I think I'll use some of that. Again, just trying to add a little bit more of this pointy texture to these pine needles, these branches. We're almost there. I'm gonna quit. And then lastly, as I always tell everyone, always sign and date your work. The reason I like to date my work is I can come back in 10 years ago. Oh yeah, I remember doing that over there. Very simple. All right, thanks for watching.